Welcome to Mind Sattva, practical wisdom for modern life. I'm Dr. Mitika Kanabar. I'm an everyday seeker, a curious thinker, and a lifelong learner. Have you ever had those conversations where you thought, this needs to be explored a little bit more? Maybe it's about spirituality. Maybe it's about finding that one thing that helps you bring balance in your life. Mind Sattva is your space. It's your community where we all come together and develop this. Through conversations with guests, we will explore ideas about clarity and about living in balance. Balance is the beginning point, it's not the destination. Every episode is an invitation to think differently, to live fully, and begin again. Do you ever feel the pressure to get everything right? That everything needs to be lined up before you step out and do something new? Or it may just be showing up to work tomorrow or to school and carrying out that presentation. We all go through these ideas of perfectionism in one form or another. So once I decided, hey, let's think about doing a chapter on this, guess what I did? I tried the perfectionist thing of doing a deep dive and knowing all that I can about imperfection and perfectionism in general. Suffice to say that it was a very long exercise, a wonderful one at that. I'm here to give you the Cliff Notes version. What do you need to know? And how does it translate from a Mind Sattva perspective? So what is perfectionism, or where does it come from? So there are many definitions of understanding perfectionism. It's the idea that you have to be perfect in a particular task or a particular attribute all the time. Where does it come from? So perfectionism comes in three forms from literature. First is self-oriented perfectionism. I have to do everything perfectly. A lot of us are in that trap, and social media worsens that trap, and we'll get to that in a minute. Other-oriented perfectionism. Some of us also fall in that trap from time to time, whether it is for our partner, for our children, for our parents, or for employees, people we work with, right? Why aren't others doing things perfectly? So you believe that others want you to show up perfectly all the time. And I think socially prescribed is the most important. Across cultures, it shows up time and again that this is how a model citizen should look to be a good member of society. And yes, we all need to be good contributing members of society, not necessarily perfect. I want to talk about the third one first, because that's the one closest to my heart. I grew up with this idea of perfectionism, not from my family. Actually, it was pervasive in the culture around me at that time. And growing up in India, in a post-colonial India, it was interesting. There were a lot of ifs and buts. There was this idea of you can only be successful if you knew the perfect English, you dressed a certain way, you earned a certain amount of money, which are not inherent to the original culture of the land. So it creates this back and forth, or as I call it in Sanskrit, dvandva, or battle between ideas, ideologies, and leaves you feeling confused and forever achieving perfectionism. So that may show up in different ways. It's also a land of a lot of people, right? So you have to almost have perfect scores to get into med school, to get into engineering school. So it is a reality in so many ways. It is survival of the fittest. What happens after, though? You were great or decent enough, good enough to get into the profession of your choice or the training of your choice. You've been there, done that. You are now at a stage in life where you have accomplished some of the things you set out for, and some things life threw at you. Do you carry that overhang of perfectionism with you when there is no new battle to fight? It is no longer about survival. What then? What happens at that time? That's when you realize where all it is getting driven. So it's kind of like this energy, it needs to channel somewhere. So maybe you're taking up projects that you do not need to take up because one, you feel that your self-worth is valued through what you accomplish, not that you yourself are a beautiful person and of immense value. So if you're taking up projects, one, to create this value, almost to get validation from outside because it doesn't exist inside. So that's a difficult pill to swallow by itself. The second part is you don't want to look imperfect by saying no. N-O full stop is a full sentence. We rarely ever use it. And it's okay, we want to be liked. Everybody wants to be liked. Everybody wants their validation. It's normal, it's human. So let's have some radical acceptance of that. That yes, I'm a social creature. I like to be appreciated by those others around me. What we do not remember is our friends, our relatives, those who like us, and those whom we like. They may not all be the same, though, by the way. They like us with our imperfections, with our shortcomings and things that make us unique. If one person had all the answers and all the skills, we would not need a society to function, would we? There's this one story about how perfectionism showed up for me and how I may know it cognitively, but to feel it in your bones, it's a different situation. So I was in this storytelling sort of workshop in my public speaking training, and I had written this whole story about me developing this app to help people with screen addiction, or not screen addiction, but cutting down their screen time. And I had written about the Cliff Notes version, right? So, I decided to do this thing. And then we did the trial, and the trial was great, and everybody loved it. They're all waiting for the app, so on. And then I got up to actually rehearse in this workshop. I had this aha moment. So I had told my story, but not really told my story. Being a physician, we are all trained to be stoic. People come in the worst of their moments. So you have to be the one with the strong shoulders, stable head, and you have to get working, right? So you are going through all of these emotions inside, but you are subduing them. So in my writing, it was all the same. To have a good 3-part story structure, you need to have an idea that the protagonist of the story wants to achieve X. Then there is if, then, this happened, then I did this. This happened, and I did this. And this happened, and I did this. These were all the roadblocks, and then leads to conclusion. So that's kind of the 3-part story structure. I had part 1 down pat. This was my idea. I had part 3. This was the resolution. The middle part, which is the most engaging and the most important of the story, is the conflict. Completely buried. And I'm like, I did that. So it could have been perfectionism. It could have been, this is not important enough. Or, I don't want to be a crybaby, saying about these are the dramas that happened. Or it could have been privacy. I don't know. When I wrote that, I probably wrote it like in the middle of the night. What was it that was driving me? But what was showing up was completely bury the conflict and present the Cliff Notes version in this beautiful way. It's not helpful to have others learn from you or from your experience, because you are experiential and they are wise. They are learning from others' experiences, not doing that experience themselves. You actually have to express the conflict. And that goes against this whole idea of stoic doctor or perfect mindset. That also brings up perfectionism creates this fear. If I show my imperfect side, people will not value what I have to say. Fear, obligation, guilt, shame. You know what else they drive? They drive addiction. It can lead to relapse. It can lead to maybe 5 more hours spent doom scrolling on social media. Like, I can never actually do this correctly, so I might as well not try. It will have this beautiful, perfect procrastination mindset develop. is that fear of being invalidated by this mythical person who expects you to be perfect. So that's all in good. But the rebel in me who's not that perfect goes, hey, my perfectionism helps me. Why should I give it up? I'm doing everything correctly and I'm doing so many things. I'm keeping myself busy. So that means I'm at least getting something right. I'm getting a lot out of my perfectionism. Why should I want to change? And I agree with you. Perfectionism does help us in so many ways. So it's not about an all or nothing, right? It's not about, oh my gosh, I have to either be perfect or not do it at all. Or if I give up perfectionism, then I will achieve nothing. It's not an all or nothing thinking. It's about what do we truly desire? What is that brings us joy? It can be different for different people. Let me know what brings you joy in the comments. So when we're thinking of perfectionism from this mindset of what part of this do I want to change, it's sort of like what we call a harm reduction lens. And that's what I'm going to present today. So what are the origins of perfectionism, how it shows up in our lives, and what do we do about it? But first, let's talk about the why. What perfectionism creates is this overwhelm. You have to do everything, you have to hit all the right notes, you have to take care of children, parents, partner, work, colleagues, friends, and do everything correctly all the time. I'm going to take a moment there. Just saying it out loud is tiring in itself. And I hope some of this resonates with you as well. So that is the why. I'm tired of my overwhelm and I want to fix some of it. Again, we are trying to do just a little bit to move the needle forward before we start making perfectionist lists about decreasing overwhelm. So one of the concepts of getting ahead in any one thing in life, whether it's being the sous chef who's chopping up some onions, the one who chops onions 100 days in a row versus one who chops onions today, zucchini tomorrow, tomatoes the next. Who do you think is going to be better at it? The one who stuck to one idea or one job. What perfectionism does is we are trying to do 15 jobs perfectly at the same time. Okay, so there was this viral moment before viral moments were a thing, maybe a decade ago, maybe less, where an Indian designer, I think it was Sabyasachi, was quoted saying, if Indian women do not know how to wear a sari, shame on them. And then he, of course, printed a retraction because I love his saris. They are absolutely beautiful. And one day, hopefully, I can afford to buy them. And I was like, that guy is such artsy. Like, how is this coming from him? But like all of us, right? I didn't have time to delve into it deeper. I did carry that with me. And I know that the connotation is like if you're wearing a sari, you have to wear it perfectly. If you can't wear it perfectly, don't make it look like a weird sort of bunched drape on you because it doesn't look that good. That's the reality of the situation. Does the draping need to be perfect? That's the question for today. So I had all of these saris from my wedding and before, maybe from my graduations. I wore a sari to my MPH graduation. God help me, I don't know how I was able to wear it. I had no idea, but YouTube, thank you. And I had worn one for my med school graduation as well. So I had all of these saris. They were just sitting in this beautiful dresser and not doing anything with it. So one of my friends at the temple here locally asked me like, oh, Mitika, why don't you wear saris? And I'm like, I don't know how to drape them and I will look atrocious. Oh my gosh, what will everybody think? All the women here know how to nicely drape their saris. And so she said to me, you know what, just try it once, watch some video or whatever. And I used to also not know how to wear a sari, but the ladies at the temple taught me. So apparently this is this women's club thing that I had no idea about, that, oh, I could ask for help. I don't have to have all the answers. That was insanely liberating for me. I'm like, fine, we have this dosa night or whatever at the temple. I'm going to wear a sari. It's going to be dark. So not many people are going to see the imperfections. And I can always skip to the bathroom and have somebody redo the sari for me. I wear this sari that has been beautifully stitched by my mother-in-law, like the whole 6 meters of it, intricate embroidery, very beautiful, that had never been touched. And I go out in that sari, and again, I don't know how to drape it. It's a decent enough drape, I guess. Nobody makes a comment. Here's the kicker. That friend didn't show up that day. So I'm like, well, I'm going to ask another friend, which I did. I'm like, what do you think of this drape? Can you help me fix it? And they're like, you're fine. You can't even make out. And it's great, decent enough. Roll with it. And that had me think, oh, wow, it was this simple. And I created this hoopla around it. So going back to Sabyasachi, what he was saying is a different version of this. So somebody had asked him apparently a question about Indian woman wearing a sari is considered an auntie, which is true. It was true about a decade or two ago. Instagram has changed it now in a different way. It's kind of hip now to wear a sari. So this is good. Maybe he was the seed of change. I don't know. And so he said, that's kind of like a colonial mindset that sari is inferior, wearing the Western clothes are superior. That was a mindset, and we shouldn't be, because he's designing all these beautiful saris and people are hesitant to buy them because they don't want to look like aunties. So I guess I understand that all his beautiful artwork is not getting used. Might have been his pet peeve. It came across differently. He apologized for it later. But it brings me to this sari today. I'm wearing it quite imperfectly because that's how I showed up this morning, not on purpose, but it came up imperfectly. I did get some hacks about how to wear a sari though in this process. Get this simple material. It is very easy to pleat and fast to pleat. Get that one standing mirror that you can to see how the pleats are going. People in India will think, of course, we have mirrors. No, we don't in the US. It's not part of the design. You have to buy a mirror. Find somewhere that you get it for cheap. Have it like against the wall so that you can see yourself getting draped. And find some videos or YouTube videos, or it's like Tia Bhu or any of these handles to follow that teach you how to drape that effortless sari even more effortlessly. So those are my 2 cents. And enjoy the jewelry you wear with it. I love jewelry, so I will find something. And also, it's not a perfect match. It just goes, and we enjoy. So that brings me to many more stories, which we can touch upon another time. This podcast episode itself is not going to be perfect. It's imperfect, and imperfection itself is a gift. I want to circle back to the Mind Sattva of it. What is karma? What is dharma? What is imperfection or perfection from that lens? We think we need to be perfect to do certain things in life. Dhritarashtra, the king in Mahabharata, himself was a blind king and relying on Sanjay to tell him the truth of what's going on in the war. Now, there's this one shloka that every time I read it, it gives me a certain different inspiration and knowledge every time I ponder upon it. It is the first line of the Gita. And the first line of the Gita is said by whom? Yes, Dhritarashtra, the imperfect, the blind king. And yet, it is so beautiful every time I say it out loud. So here it goes. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamaka pandavaschaiva kim kurvata sanjaya. In the land of karma, everybody has gathered for battle. Actually, in the Sanskrit way of writing, he starts with the word dharma. The second or third word is karma. Dharma kshetre, karma kshetre. Him being imperfect, how he is fortune telling, unfortunately, the end of the Mahabharata. Whatever is dharma shall remain, and the karma of Dharma shall be victorious. We will all play a part in our own imperfect selves to do the duties that we should be doing or the responsibilities that we should be doing. Isn't that beautiful? Going into Gita and what it says about perfectionism, it's actually quite hilarious. So let's begin. So, what is perfection according to the Gita? So, this is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 20 and 21. By performing their prescribed duties, King Janak and others attain perfection. You should also perform your duties to set an example for the good of the world. Whatever actions great persons perform, common people follow. Whatever standards they set, all the world pursues. So this is also known as Yatha Raja Tatha Praja. How the king acts, so shall the subjects. The kings, never know kings who are super perfect. Do you know of any? Yet they did set standards for their kingdom. So that's kind of what he's saying. Perfection is not the perfection you and I perceive. Perfection is sticking to your particular task. And then later on in the last chapter, the 18th chapter of the Gita, there are a bunch of verses, and I'm going to just say the English words out loud and then maybe go into one of the shlokas. So this is chapter 18, verse 45. By fulfilling their duties, born of their innate qualities, human beings can attain perfection. Now hear from me how one can become perfect by discharging one's prescribed duties. So remember, he's not saying you need to be the next Einstein if you even want to go into engineering. Not at all. All right. And my favorite is actually coming up next. Bhagavad Gita 1847. It's better to do one's own dharma, even though imperfectly, than to do another's dharma, even though perfectly. Isn't that beautiful? I think it further goes on to say more about it. But in my opinion, if I were to put my sarcastic hat on, that just tells me that the person who wants to do other person's prescribed work perfectly is a fool. And we all want to be fools all the time, don't we? So it's a good time to take a laugh at ourselves. And also a good time to think of those people in your family or friend circle who think you are doing absolutely imperfect things. You need to cook a certain way, especially for women. A house needs to look a certain way. Only then will you be ready to have company, or the china needs to be perfect, or the table laid out in a perfect Pinterest fashion. What we then miss is the true pleasure of sitting down and breaking bread with our friends. We miss the impact of community. Do my friends care if my table is perfectly laid out in Pinterest fashion? Hell, half of them don't even have Pinterest. What we enjoy is the value and the love and affection we bring to each other. If this topic stirred something within you, I hope you can share it with somebody else. What are some more things about perfection and imperfection that you'd like discussed? What are some ways in which perfection shows up in your life? Let's take the next couple of days, weeks, months to just be mindful of where is perfection showing up and what can I do to be good enough? Because good enough gets done. Good enough gets us together, having that meal together, becoming friends, being each other's helpers or guides when the need arises. Here is to imperfection. Thank you for joining me today on Mind Sattva, Practical Wisdom for Modern Life. If today's episode sparked something within you, I hope you share it with a friend who may need it too. We discussed some ideas and concepts. Let's take some time to observe them in nature or in daily life. Until then, let's stay curious, grounded, and remember that balance is not a destination, it's just a beginning. Let's meet again, or audio.